Hello, everyone, and thank you for all your comments, questions, and warm welcome to the new subscribers, and especially to the new YouTube members. So, today I would like to speak about a very interesting topic which kind of bridges spirituality and our mental health. So, those of you who participated in the webinar on antiquity and mysteries of antiquity, it was the occult webinar we had in October this year. So, if anyone missed that and would like to watch it, you can always drop us an email with the contact form, and you can donate to watch it. Anyways, it was a very interesting webinar. So today I would like to just shed light on extra aspects. So the most important is to understand that most of our current practices and ideas of spirituality, evolution, the way we perceive ourselves, are connected to all these practices that have been, either obviously, openly propagated or practiced in secrecy, in an occult way, right? The whole point of understanding the cycle of evolution, devolution, is actually understanding the expressive and concealed side of the original soul, the side which is dispersing and the side that is unifying. So again, we're dealing here with the world and its dual aspects, whether this is positive, negative, or masculine or feminine, or demonic or angelic, or simply the tendency of dispersion, fragmentation, projection, or the process of unification and absorption. So the point is to achieve balance. So evolution is not, or any kind of spiritual development is not about going to extremes. It's about the achievement of balance on this particular realm or dimensional level. And once you have achieved that balance, and you are that balance on all the levels, so you emanate that balance. It's not about what you think of yourself as what you are by vibration. Then you are able to transcend this realm and go into other sort of subtleties of existence. But this is not the point of this video. So when we spoke about the spirituality of antiquity and all these different cults that have been shaping our spirituality, say, for the past 6,000 years, all this different extremes that have been practicing or propagating or believing it, and so on and so forth. Where do they come from, and how did they shape our mentality, our understanding? At the moment, we are facing the crisis of mental health, you may say, or in other words, spiritual crisis, the imbalances within the society that have been created, or the corruption, the distorted patterns that have been created for the past 6,000 years due to the imbalances within our collective consciousness and between these principles of masculinity, femininity. There's been a lot of repression. There's been a lot of, or the occult, the shadow side has been created because we have forgotten the way of naturally being, the spirituality of a natural being, or natural spirituality. We have started losing touch with our higher being. And the more we've lost that touch, the more we resorted to the projected reality and the means that this projected reality offers to us. And so, therefore, the spirituality or the forms we call spirituality have degraded, the forms of the spirituality. And even though we think that progress and evolution are maybe, or the signs of progress and evolution are rooted in technological advancement or writing, in reality, the more we started going away from the balance, which is being, which is natural spirituality, more into action, where the masculine principle has taken over, the more we started longing for the missing or imbalanced femininity, meaning the shadow of our being started forming behind the scenes. So that's the occult side. And the occult side is our longing for the feminine principle, which is allowance, sometimes indulgence, sometimes this dreaminess, sometimes this idealism. And so we continued creating more dogmatized, conceptualized, organized type of spirituality, ritualistic, filled with practices, filled with different kind of forms of disciplines based on words rather than being or emotion. Yet the being and emotion remained suppressed, and that's why it gave way to the development of the occult side of spirituality, which is now dominating, even though it's hidden. So, or it is not obvious. And so for that, you would need to go into secrecy, into some kind of specific initiations where all your organized, orderly ways of spirituality, all these boundaries and patriarchal systems would be shattered, would be destroyed, and all that has been suppressed would come to the surface. That's why we have all these, the other side, the other extreme, which is indulgence, inertia, where we see the rise in secret societies, in indulgence, in drug addiction or drug intake or stimulation of some sort in order to have some kind of an enhanced state of inertia, dreaminess, which could be easily misunderstood and misperceived for the actual natural being. Now, the being stands between the inertia, according to me, between the inertia and between the action, in order to realize the essence of the true original teachings. We are to return to the being. That is the original yoga. That is the original balance. Otherwise, we tend to balance between the matriarchal and patriarchal spirituality, or between the cults of severe austerities, discipline, deprivation, or the cults of severe indulgence, breaking the rules and patterns and kind of indulging in all the taboos, where we see the rise of sexual rights, the breaking boundaries between ages, genders, etc. That's why we suddenly pay attention and are shocked that our society is actually ruled by people who go into the unconventional or matriarchal type of spirituality, which means occult, and they do practice all these sexual rites, the phenomenon we call bestiality, the phenomenon we call abuse of children, etc., because we look at it from a different standpoint. Now, none of these extremes are the real spirituality. All of these are the products or the byproducts of the degradation, the spiritual degradation. What is the spiritual degradation? Is the loss, the natural loss of the connection with the higher reality within the collective and beyond. And this loss resulted in the loss of understanding what life from the capital L is, or existence is, and the emergence of unnatural death versus the exit from this life, so known as death from the capital D, which is supposed to mean something else. Now, when we lose our link and connection with the higher self, we lose also the connection with the subtler realities of the self. So we forget the pathway out of the body. So, and because we forget it, we start creating cults of life, death, resurrection, rebirth, because we cannot embrace the multidimensionality of self. We cannot retain that connection with the higher reality while being in this body, and we lose the knowledge of longevity or prolonged existence on this earth in a balanced body. And because of all that, we start becoming desperate. So from the past, or for the past 6,000 years, we have become very desperate. So what is this desperation about? The desperation to prolong life, the desperation to prolong youth, the desperation to free ourselves from diseases, or in other words, to heal. And the other word for healing and health is balance. That's how I see it again. And when we, and again, the emergence of unnatural death or decay, premature decomposition of the flesh, the emergence of disease, which precedes the unnatural death, are the results of loss of touch with the higher existence. So what's the purpose of spirituality? The real spirituality, real shaktipat or whatever, is to reconnect. We can use multiple words for one and the same phenomenon. And it doesn't matter that you have to be, or it doesn't mean that you have to believe in something or disbelieve. Because real spirituality is rooted in the being. The being, you're either being or you're not. If you're not being, you're inertia or your anxiety in action. Now, in order to return ourselves to the state of authenticity, we have to cultivate the being through inertia, or through the states of inertia and through the states of action. And we are to learn the balance. Those who were known as masters were simply able to maintain themselves in that state of being, in the state of balance. And because of that maintenance, again, you cannot remain in a state of balance if you're not connected to the higher being. So the goal was to reconnect. That's why at this point of time, in this day and age, it is relevant to speak of awakening, reconnection. If we were in a different age, maybe that would not be relevant. So again, we have to take time in account. That's why most of the occult cults were also taking time in account and even worshiping it. because time sets everything into a perspective. And any changes and alterations in time could be seen as invasive or manipulative in terms of changing certain outcomes. That's where such sciences as magic come into picture, warfare, the control of weather, and overall manipulation of the waves and frequencies of this world. But we're not going into this. The most important, again, when we awaken, is not only to cultivate the being, but also to see the extremes. That's why there are stages when you observe your obsessions, distortions, corruption in general. And where you go into these extremes, from indulging back into discipline and austerities, from disciplined diet and lifestyle into indulgence, from leading a parasitic lifestyle or going into drugs, then staying clean. So all of these are extremes, ways of stimulate your mind, explaining or trying to, basically the mind in this case is in the middle and it's trying to find the meaning. If you read my book, Siddha Parampara, well, it's not my book, it's the knowledge of the ancients anyways. That's why it's called Siddha Parampara. You could see that if you really go into a very deep contemplation where the mind, the human context is not engaged, life itself has no meaning. It's just a realm on its own. Now, your presence in this world sets your space and time continuum into specific motion. And so for you, things start having a meaning. Now, if we want to know the truth and return to the reality, again, with the purpose to realize more, to get what? More time. What is time? Time is energy, explained multiple times. Time is energy. The more energy you've got, the more time you have, meaning the more potential to live longer you have, the more longevity you have. Why would you need longevity? With only one purpose, to learn more about creation in this particular realm, or in this realm and the subtler realms which are attached to it. Once you somewhat know, everything starts being less and less meaningful and more meaningless in this realm, because you've exhausted your capacity. That's why sooner or later you need to know how to exit freely by will. So that's why we see all these sciences, they've still been preserved there, but in a very mysterious, even occult way, usually mixed with all kinds of other corrupt ways of spirituality, which we may call bestiality or indulgence, or something which is very controversial and even criminal in some cases. So now all of these different spiritual traditions of antiquity until now, they have regressed from the one's ability to deal with different spiritual archetypes of masculine and feminine nature, which would be the representation of pantheons of gods and goddesses. So they reduced to the monotheistic organized, ritualistic, and very dogmatized forms of spirituality. Now, we see here the regression from from emotion towards word. Again, word, the spirituality that is based on scriptures, words, is a degraded form of spirituality. It's an extreme towards the masculine, patriarchal, organized, ritualistic type of spirituality. And then we have emotions. So in early ages, spiritual expression was based more on emotion. That's why you see dances. That's why you see more non-verbal connection there. And the ideal way is that these two exist in a balanced way. Emotion with the organized way of expression, but not in an extreme way to neither sides. So again, our current spirituality has become more towards words. So we buy words. Our entire social order is based on words. Our marketing, our propaganda, political propaganda, we fight with words. We fight with logic. All our natural feminine side, self-expression, has been repressed. That's why now we see the extremes of that in men and women, where whatever has been repressed starts coming out to the surface. So we are living in the open mental asylum, where we're given a sort of freedom to express our mental and emotional imbalances and suppressions in a kind of a more perverted way. But this is the age of perversion, so it's not something that we should try to change. It's but natural. When something is suppressed, it comes out otherwise. So at the moment, the only way to restore the natural spirituality, or the spirituality of being, is to tend towards more natural, which means unsuppressed ways of expression. Again, our systems, social structures, political, economical, teach us to be too much within the order, where the expression is preconceived, premeditated, and is taught in a kind of a patterned way. When we learn patterns, we stop being able to escape these patterns. And so we become somewhat robotic in our self-expression. That's why our emotional side of life, which actually nurtures our soul, and which is the middle link between our body and our higher being, that emotional side is neglected, suffering. That's why also we're incapable of forming long-lived, or you can say for life, partnerships, friendships, very rarely. And even then, the authenticity of these partnerships is questionable. People can negotiate, people can agree, but that's not always based on natural self-expression and true love, because the frequency of true love is the frequency that one gets in touch after reconnecting with a higher being. And so without this awakening, one has no reference point of what real, true frequency of love is, because that frequency is devoid of human context, but when experienced within human context, can bring balance. And so I've also recorded multiple videos on love and the frequency of love. Again, it's a very unusual discovery for the current humanity. Very, very few beings have experienced or touch upon that high frequency of love, and maybe experienced it in glimpses, but could not sustain it. Again, the awakened state is this state of high frequency of love. Now, when we are in that frequency, there is but naturally no need to have any rules and regulations in terms of spirituality, because we do not need to be told that we shouldn't kill or violate or steal from other people or envy them, because that frequency is beyond these aforementioned frequencies. So when you are love, there's no violence. There's no need for regulation. There is no need for anything. But in desperation to get there, we've created a lot of dead-end spiritual traps, such as all these different forms of bestiality. Plus, we've connected, or we first of all created these subtle, low-frequency archetypes, started worshipping them and connecting in order to get something in this physical world. So these elemental entities or some other. So we have created through these repressed conscious expressions of feelings, we have created the world of shadows. Now, that's where we also call this age of dispersion the demonic age, or we call this spirituality demonic, because it's rooted in the connection and worship and the exchange of energy between different shadows and limited forms of projections, existence in general. So everything we know in here is limited in its energetic potential. It means that it cannot sustain for as long as it wants. It requires a separate source. So let's say if we worship something, we give it life because our living consciousness supports its transitory existence. Now, when we stop worshiping, when we stop having or believing in certain things, we no longer believe in certain ideologies. These ideologies die down, kind of like vanish with time. And then we start new beliefs. And so the same applies to all kinds of archetypes. We can create these archetypes. When we speak in terms of higher archetypes, they are the creator, the sustainer, and destroyer. This is the ultimate capacity of consciousness. So, and then we have this pantheon of lower gods and goddesses, which means we can create them. We can create entities, gods, goddesses, worship them, impregnate them with our energy. The question arises, why? Of course, if you are greedy and envious and you want to destroy someone else's kingdom or fight holy wars, certainly that could be applicable. But when you speak in terms of higher wisdom and existence, this all but looks like a game, a checkerboard, right? So anyways, I'm not going to go too much into details here. The purpose of this video was to raise your awareness in terms of where you stand and what this all is about. Why are we so, what is this interest in spirituality? if you worship crystals or you talk to some entities and you call them angels or demons, or you wear certain jewelry, does it really make you spiritual? What makes you spiritual is the vibrational level. It's not even your emotions. It's not what you do or don't do. It's not your words. It's the vibration. It's your cumulative vibrational level that defines you and who you are by your presence. It's not about momentary thoughts or lack of them, or momentary emotions or lack of them. In capacity, we all are able to generate thoughts, emotions. We're able to navigate our spirit or consciousness through the body, which means action. But action starts in the consciousness. It's a vibration, and then it can appear as a physical action or some kind of movement. And yet all of these that I mentioned are the extensions of that which is really spiritual, which is consciousness, which is beyond ideas. And once you reconnect with that, you are able to realize and understand what this world and all that we see and don't see, the creation itself on all levels, mean or is. But the main thing is to, first of all, raise in frequency within yourself, within the physical vehicle. Even if you just reconnect momentarily with the high existence, you touch upon that frequency, it's still not integrated in the body. And that's where the idea of yoga was born, where we began to need this integration because we simply started going into more and more dispersion, fragmentation within the projected reality. And at some point, we're to align, reach that point of alignment where you can experience longevity. And after that, there is a point where there is no point to stay here any longer. And that's where you may decide voluntarily when and how to exit. But it has nothing to do with torturing your body, putting it through all kinds of extremes, drug abuse, sexual indulgence or deprivation, starvation, or again, indulgence into food, intellectual starvation or intellectual indulgence. No, because all of these don't matter. What matters is your awareness and ability to realize what this body is for, that the consciousness is the root and the body is the fruit. And as long as you are aware of that, not because of these words or, wow, this sounds so this and that, no, because you perceive it. When you return to the point of perception, you know it, you cultivate it. And this knowledge pushes you further to navigate through creation, to be here comfortable, to realize that you are one with creation. And even though your body, this body is in this dimension of this realm, you also perceive other dimensions of yourself at the same time. That's already a spiritual expansion. But that's not the purpose. The purpose is first alignment. Again, for our current age, we first need to heal. We need to balance our inertia with our action and all these extremes that we're experiencing here. So we are to cultivate being without running into extremes. And then everything else becomes clear. And the more clarity we gain, the more we can say that we are aligned, because this clarity will be dawning into our body and enlightening all the cells. Then we'll realize what longevity is, what agelessness is, and what spiritual immortality that gives way to physical longevity is. And then life with a capital L, an exit point within that life, which is known as death with a capital D, won't be scary, but the natural flow of existence. Contemplate, perceive, and free yourself from corrupt patterns if you identify them through this transmission. And then life will be felt stronger within your body. The pulse of life, the high frequency of life, the immortal essence of life will be perceived in a much more enhanced way. And it will offer you a gift of healing, a gift of transformation. That's where we're heading from this point of the cycle further on. Since it has taken so many years to degrade, to disperse, to fragment, it's going to take years to align. But those beings and souls who resonate with this are the pioneers. A pioneer doesn't mean you're a special or chosen one. A pioneer means you've taken a heavy duty on your shoulders. But because you're strong as a soul and you still remember that aligned state from the beginning of the cycle. Thank you very much for your attention, for your time. Many blessings to all of you. If you're interested, you may subscribe to the channel for more content and for special live streams and exclusive video content, transmissions, meditations, other things. You may join Shaktipat Stream Special YouTube membership. Thank you very much and many blessings to everyone.